intelligent people don't believe that conservatives or Republicans actually even exist. Like, it's not real. It's basically made up. And I'll explain what I mean by that. When I talk about deconstructing and leaving conservatism and the issues that I've seen throughout journalism, one of the things that was also happening at the same time, though, is I'm maturing. Okay, so I'm going from my teens into my early 20s. And so part of it was actually outgrowing it because, as I mentioned before, there were so many things that I believed that were fundamental in pushing a conservative or Republican agenda that simply were not true. It just was not real. The very first element of the illusion of Republican conservative politics in the United States is the fact that in order for anybody to participate in it, they have to be lied to and they have to believe certain lies. And Ronald Reagan said it best: they know so much that isn't so. Talk about another allegation that's a confession. And I'm going to continue to give examples of what this looks like because even as an adult, there are still things that I believed or remember differently and will look up and be like, wow, I was really lied to about that. So one example of that is when I was writing about Iran this year and talking about what it meant for us to, consider striking Iran, the fact that we probably would, that we were doing so based entirely on lies. And I know for a fact that many conservatives believe that Obama sent an airplane full of cash to Iran in order to get a nuclear deal. That's not what happened. No, we stole money from them and owed them money, and it was held in the United States for a long period of time. And so we paid them back, and it wasn't even part of the nuclear deal. It was part of trying to establish more peace in the Middle East. Obama's not a perfect president by any means, but that's the truth. I know that when we struck Iran in June, many people believed that they were developing nuclear weapons. There is absolutely no evidence of that, and I can even pull emails from 2013 where the Republican Jewish Coalition and all of these organizations were stating that within 2 months, Iran would have a nuclear weapon. Another great example is the concept of partial birth abortion. I really thought that people could just change their mind at the end of pregnancy or that partial birth abortion was true. It has not ever existed in the United States, and basically every single late abortion is to save the life. So the exception is already within the rule. Before getting into part 2 of the illusion, I'll give one more example, and that is the fact that even in my hometown, we have elected officials that will continuously say that during the Biden or Obama administration, illegal immigrants were staying in 5-star hotels. Also, not true. Now, the second part of the illusion has to deal with the fact that a function of a system is what that system does. So Congress can set up something like the Department of Education, and we would all agree that the Department of Education is to make us globally competitive, make sure we have a basic standard and that our schools are funded, yada, yada, yada. But if you use any entity or ideology to do something other than what it was intended, then it becomes that thing. So like right now, we have a Department of Education that is trying to dismantle the public school system. It is trying to encourage homeschooling and basically create chaos within all of education in the United States. In the same way that I could buy a meat cleaver and its obvious intent is to chop meat, but if I kill somebody with it, it's a murder weapon. So this is where people can actually hold beliefs that are supposed to be Republican conservative. So maybe you believe no sex before marriage. Maybe you don't believe in abortion. Maybe you believe in really pulling the pocket strings tight and being careful with government spending or whatever they're telling you conservatism means. But because conservatism now is so tightly aligned with capitalism, and it conserves nothing, it is impossible for any good intended intent of Republican ideology to ever come from an actual conservative or Republican. The entire system is about valuing conquest over conservation. Example of that while we're talking about things like xenophobia is if you were to look at the most radical, terrible, destructive organizations on the planet, it doesn't matter what religion they are, right? We put a lot of value on religion. What matters is if they are considered far right ideologically. The meanest and worst of the Zionists and what we see the IDF doing, that is the most conservative faction of Judaism, the jihadists, the terrorist groups that we all know about in the Middle East that are Muslim. They are the most conservative faction of Muslim. When you look at the United States, the really scary, violent, white Christian nationalist, racist people that are marching in the streets, that are cosplaying as Nazis, well, actually they are Nazis. That is the most conservative faction of that religion. So when you look at it that way, when you look at the fact that you can't get anything conservative out of conservatism or anything Republican out of being a Republican, then the point is moot. And when you have a control such as religion, race, whatever, and conservatism in its extreme doesn't work in any, but all of those religions have many factions and communities that thrive, then we know that the problem is conservatism. Third part of the illusion, which piggybacks off of 1 and 2, right? The fact that you not only have to believe things that are not true to be tricked into participating in conservative Republican politics in the United States, and not only does it not function as it should for the elements that are truthful about your Republican conservative identity, but your participation almost never includes you, and you don't even know it. There is a world so dark and seedy that if Americans were educated on it and knew about it, and that is the way government contracts work, for example, they would riot. And that is because so much of Republican conservative politics, when it isn't religious, tends to come down to being constitutional and democratic. We'll get into that next. Or they'll say they're a fiscal conservative, that they believe in capitalism. But I am telling you right now, there's about 0.5% of the United States that is included in this system, and you and I are not. We're not them. The fourth element of the illusion of conservative Republican politics in the United States has to deal with just that, the fact that you are not included. Because Republicans go to the polls for is to vote to take away the rights or livelihood and choices of other people, not themselves, because there's really not a single liberal democratic policy that inhibits a conservative Republican that holds those ideologies personally, whether it be for religious, financial, whatever reason. No, because you can still get married and have 10 kids. You can homeschool those kids. You can go to church. You don't have to get gay married. There is nothing within liberal democratic policy, and we're going to go after them too, that says that if you do not believe in abortion, you have to have one in any circumstance. And if you are not voting for yourself, you're not voting at all. You've never voted before. You can add never truly voting to the long list of unconstitutional things that Republicans do, whether it be the bastardization of the Second Amendment or this unitary executive theory that they're trying to implement right now. It used to be fringe, but we're just going to shit on the Constitution now. So the concept, not only fiscally, not only religiously, not only factually and intellectually, but also constitutionally, cannot withstand any scrutiny to justify conservative Republican American politics. The fifth illusion of conservative Republican American politics comes down to something that's bigger than all of us, and that is just basic nature, human nature. We are all supposed to progress and evolve and do better than those that came before us, but conservatism basically demands a conclusion without any curiosity. This is why conservatives are not creatives. There are very few funny, if any, conservative Republican comedians, filmmakers, songwriters, etc. They don't want to progress forward. And when you are unable to create anything, you will destroy everything. Circling back to a function of a system is what that system does. Name a single government department, a single government program, just one, that conservative Republicans have improved. They've destroyed literally everything. And so, now that I've made the argument that Republican conservatism isn't real because it was conceived out of lies, the opposite of a lie is the truth is reality, so it's not real. It was born to not function as perceived by supporters, and perception is reality, so it's not real. And so if the Republican Party isn't even real or doing anything, well, then that would obviously mean the same thing is true about the Democratic Party, because it's the only opposition, really. And you can't oppose something that doesn't exist. Now, the Democratic Party on paper has a lot of things that I do agree with. However, I tend to be far more left, but I also have ideas, and a two-party system pretty much prohibits ideas altogether. So I would describe myself as progressive. That doesn't mean that I don't vote, even though I'm not very pleased with either party, because I am not a sociopath and I believe in harm reduction. But the reality is that we do need other choices, and that what I would like to see happen is progress in every single capacity, whether it be public transit, better public health care, whether it be that we quit being in the same fucking war for 25 years for no goddamn reason besides to make defense contractors rich. I believe that everybody should be able to live their life the way that they want to, so long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. Living in truth and reality, which is very difficult to do, like when there's people like Nick Shirley out there that Republicans are wanting to get a fucking Pulitzer Prize. That's insanity. So, while I do not fall within a specific belief system that is recognized, I'm no less valid. And I do wish that we had an apparatus to push forward with other ideas. That's something we're going to have to build in the future. But with that said, I can say this, is that it is inhumane, diabolical, and insane to be an American Republican conservative, because it accomplishes nothing but destroys everything.